Title: The Haunting of Blackwood Manor, a true tale of terror. In a quiet, picturesque town nestled deep within the Appalachian Mountains, there stood an imposing structure known as Blackwood Manor. This grand mansion had a history steeped in darkness and despair, a chilling tale rooted in real-life horror. The year was 1923, and the Blackwood family had just moved into their newly acquired estate. Charles Blackwood, a wealthy industrialist, and his wife, Eleanor, were drawn to the mansion's eerie charm. Little did they know that this decision would plunge them into a nightmarish ordeal. From the very first night, strange occurrences plagued the Blackwood family. Unexplained footsteps echoed through the empty hallways, and eerie whispers filled the air. At times, Eleanor would wake up, drenched in cold sweat, having dreamt of a malevolent presence lurking in the shadows. Their daughter, Emily, was the most affected. She claimed to have befriended a little girl named Abigail, who she said lived within the walls of the mansion. Charles and Eleanor dismissed it as the imagination of a lonely child until one evening when they saw Emily conversing with thin air, her eyes fixed on an empty corner of the room. Things took a terrifying turn when they discovered a hidden room in the basement, a secret chamber filled with disturbing relics from a bygone era. Among them was a diary belonging to a previous owner, Samuel Blackwood, who had gone mad in the very house they now inhabited. As Charles delved deeper into Samuel's writings, he uncovered a sinister history of rituals and sacrifices conducted by the Blackwood ancestors. Desperate to unravel the mystery behind the haunting, he invited paranormal investigators and mediums to the estate. What they discovered shook them to their core. The spirits of Abigail and Samuel Blackwood were trapped in a never-ending cycle of torment, seeking vengeance for the horrors inflicted upon them by their own family. The investigators revealed that Abigail was Samuel's younger sister, who had been sacrificed in a dark ritual centuries ago. The supernatural presence grew stronger, and the investigators were driven away by a malevolent force they could not comprehend. The Blackwood family found themselves isolated, trapped in a mansion that seemed to feed on their fear. As the days turned into weeks, Charles and Eleanor watched in helpless horror as their daughter, Emily, became more and more possessed by Abigail's vengeful spirit. They were forced to make a harrowing decision, one that would determine the fate of their family. The darkness that clung to Blackwood Manor seemed insurmountable, and they knew they had to confront the malevolent spirits that haunted them. Desperate for a solution, Charles sought out the expertise of a reclusive occultist named Dr. Elias Thorne, rumored to have dealt with entities from the other side. Dr. Thorne agreed to come to Blackwood Manor, but he warned the Blackwoods that the path to confront the spirits would be fraught with peril. On a moonless night, with the winds howling through the ancient trees, Dr. Thorne and the Blackwood family gathered in the haunted basement. Armed with an array of arcane symbols and relics, Dr. Thorne began a ritual to communicate with the tormented spirits. As the incantations echoed through the chamber, the temperature plummeted, and the air grew heavy with an oppressive energy. The spirits of Abigail and Samuel materialized before them, their faces twisted with anger and sorrow. Eleanor, her voice trembling, implored the vengeful siblings to release them from the curse that bound them to the mansion. Abigail's ethereal form wavered, and tears seemed to well up in her ghostly eyes. Samuel, however, remained defiant, his voice a spectral growl. Dr. Thorne, undeterred, continued the ritual, using every ounce of his mystical knowledge to compel the spirits to move on. The struggle between the living and the dead reached a fever pitch, shaking the very foundations of Blackwood Manor. In a final, desperate act, Charles stepped forward, invoking the memory of the Blackwood ancestors who had perpetrated the heinous acts against their own family. He confessed to the sins of his bloodline, acknowledging the unspeakable horrors committed in the mansion's name. As the words left his lips, a blinding light engulfed Abigail and Samuel. Their anguished cries pierced the night as they were pulled into a swirling vortex of energy. The spirits were finally released from their torment, disappearing into the unknown. The silence that followed was deafening, and the oppressive atmosphere that had gripped Blackwood Manor for so long began to dissipate. The family stood together, exhausted but relieved that their ordeal was over. The following morning, the first rays of dawn bathed the mansion in a gentle, golden light, as if purging it of its malevolent past. Blackwood Manor was no longer haunted, and the town's dark secret had been laid to rest. But the memories of that night would forever haunt the Blackwood family, serving as a grim reminder that some horrors cannot be escaped, and some decisions come at a price too steep to fathom. As they looked out over their newly tranquil estate, they couldn't help but wonder if the darkness truly had been vanquished or if it merely lay dormant, waiting for another unsuspecting family to call Blackwood Manor home. Subscribe to our YouTube channel.